So I just tell you a little bit about how Writing Out Loud got started, the history of it. Um, Social services had a group of participants, or a group of clients, I guess, who they said were um, the bottom of the barrel of the employment abilities. So like just, people that they thought would never be employable, and they just said, here, see what you can do with this group of people. And it was all women. There was a fellow in the beginning, but he dropped out a little bit later. So it was all women and age 23 to 50, I think. And I think we started off with 13 and stayed around 10 to 13 through the next 3 years. And so the focus was supposed to be on employment. But as we started to work together, it was so obvious that the women weren't personally ready or learning ready or employment ready. So we had to look first at making sure people had a roof over their heads. We had one lady who was living out of her car at the time. And so we had to look at basic needs like food and shelter and transportation and just basic stuff. So once we started looking at where people were personally, then we could start looking at where they were in terms of learning readiness. And so many of the women um, had been told they were stupid, had been literally kicked into them that they weren't any good, that they couldn't learn. And so we started off by saying, yes, you can learn, and I'm going to show you how. And so um, I used writing personally as a way to um, get my thoughts down and to make sense out of things that I was trying to figure out. For me, I don't really know what I'm thinking until I write it down. So when I see it, I have a much better sense of things. So we started with a little bit of writing, and of course, everybody didn't like it at first. But as they started to, they saw that just a little bit of a story of their lives was really appreciated by everybody else. And as we sat around a table and wrote about everyday things, and then shared that writing, people really started to open up and enjoy that process. And I remember one of the ladies saying that she had a really hard time talking out loud about her broken marriage, but she could write out loud about it. So she said, I'd rather I like writing out loud about my story. I don't like talking out loud about it. And that's where the title of the book came from. So we just used writing as a way to start expressing ourselves. And we wrote about everything. So if the students, um, well, they had never voted before, and we had a municipal election. And so they decided that they thought that only people that own homes could vote. So they had never voted before. So we went through the whole process of how voting works, and we went and voted. We all went together and then came back and wrote about it. And whatever was happening around us, we would write about it. And so our curriculum was basically real life, whatever was happening. So I wasn't following any real curriculum. I was just listening to what the students were saying and what they needed and what they were asking about. And so that was how we went every day. And then eventually, everybody was so excited about their writing that they wanted to print it. They wanted to get it out to other people. So we started to polish these gems that we had written. And by gems, I say we talked about GBTs. That's the goosebump theory or the goosebump test. So if you've read writing to somebody and it gives them goosebumps, you know that's good writing. And if it brings any kind of emotion from tears to laughter, that's good writing. And that's how you judge not the grammar and the spelling, but just how it makes you feel. And so those gems were polished and put together into little booklets that we distributed around Camrose, where we live. And Camrose is 120 kilometers southeast of Edmonton. So that's where we are. It's a farming community. And so the women got to polish these pieces and then publish them. And the pride they had in that. We had a book launch and invited people to see the new booklet, and it just went full circle. It went from I have nothing to say, I'm not important, I don't whatever I have to say nobody cares about, and to being able to say, look what I wrote, and this is how I feel, and this is who I am. So it was a great process. So the chapters ended up being um, what would I call it? It was designed for and about the women. So the more I gave over my idea of being the teacher and being more of a facilitator, and one of the things that we didn't mention yet is that we talk about free writing, we talk about students writing, but one of the key aspects of writing out loud is that the teacher, the instructor, the facilitator does writing as well. So it's a group effort, and all the students and the facilitator write together and share together. And so I did an awful lot of learning myself through this process, which I'm so grateful for. So the learning was very student-centered, and it's not hard because you just listen to what people are writing and what they're saying at coffee break, and you'll start to hear where the stories are. Um,
I think the other part that I think is really important to note is that it came from a grassroots. It's a grassroots approach. You led the way by your confidence in women's inherent abilities and their knowledge about their own lives. But then you went viral.
yes.
You packaged it up, and it became very popular.
Right. So writing out loud, the first draft of it became a final report for the National Literacy Secretariat at the time. And we printed copies for all the literacy workers in Alberta, and it just took off. And then all of a sudden we were publishing 1,000 at a time. And we went through 3 publishings of writing out loud like that. And the students were sending them out to people all over Canada and then eventually in the States. And then because the interest was so great, we were called out to do workshops. And so we literally, a couple of the students, there were a core of 4 students that traveled with me, and we went from Victoria to Newfoundland and Yellowknife and spent a year just traveling to different communities and doing workshops with ESL students and with women's groups and seniors. I mean, just wherever we could, wherever anybody would have us, we would go, and we had a great time, especially since the women had never been on a plane before, and they'd never traveled outside of this area. So it was huge learning all the way around. Um, so then we were still in demand and we couldn't possibly keep up. So that's when we did the training of the trainers. We did the literacy, the writing out loud instructor training, which is what Betsy and Lynn and Diana all took. So that's how we got this whole thing going. And that was, 23 years ago that writing out loud first came out. And I just can't believe I'm here right now teaching a writing out loud workshop online with all of you. And it's just wonderful.